Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Entrepreneur Coach podcast. I am the Entrepreneur Coach, Bree Seeley, and I'm really thrilled about today's episode. Katja and I first connected through this great event in August called Potapalooza. She went from having this experience of being in the energy of self-sabotage to really truly looking within and finding that wisdom within herself to connect with her truth, to know what was possible for her, to move forward in the world with strength, resilience, and determination as a female entrepreneur. Excited to chat with her, excited to get her wisdom into your ears and your heart and your mind, and really excited for today's episode. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Coach podcast. I'm the Entrepreneur Coach, Bree Seeley. My mission is to help female entrepreneurs like you have the audacity to believe in the inevitability of your success, then to gather the resources, tools, and knowledge you need to create your most aligned and profitable pathway to your vision of success. This podcast is all about providing you with a nitty-gritty behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. Forget the success porn and the rags to riches stories. Each episode will pull back the curtain and share the reality of entrepreneurship. I cannot wait to be part of your journey. Katja Lany is a spiritual guide who helps wise women to break the bonds of their lineage to become what she calls a sacred disruptor. She helps them let go of their ancestral baggage as they learn to love themselves more and claim their best years ever. Please help me as I welcome Katja to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Bree. And I am excited also to be here with you and your audience because I know that what you like most is to go deep. And that's exactly the place where I enjoy to be as well. I'm thrilled to have that conversation with you.
Same. I initially pushed back on you a little bit, like, no, I don't know if you really want to be on this podcast. We're going to talk about some real shit. And you showed up and you were like, nope, that's my vibe too. Give us an idea of how long have you been in business? What inspired you to say yes to becoming an entrepreneur in the first place?
This question is always a little tricky to answer because there's those two possible answers. I've been on a really committed journey since 2016. But when you look at the business part of the journey, that's more recent. The day that determines that for me is September 30th, 2023, because that's when I came out of that spiritual closet and dared to speak publicly about my journey for the first time on a summit.
Awesome. I think oftentimes too, there is so many of us that are especially healers and are service providers and are in tune with those things. We're always doing those things. It is true that there's oftentimes a progression of, well, I've been doing this all my life into that moment where this is it. I'm claiming this, I'm going for it. So obviously you were on the summit, but what inside of you triggered to know that it was time to really come out and go full force?
That is that breakthrough moment that I had in my life. And it happened in a so-called breakthrough retreat that I did with Star of Divine Light Institute. It was a 24/7 meditation retreat. There was a handful of retreatants together and we did our own individual journey. We would have meals together, for example, but would not talk during those times of being together, except for a few moments each day when we had partner practices. That's the only time we broke the silence of the retreat. It was in one of those partner practices with my male mentor that I had this life-changing moment that was a real turnaround for me. We are sitting in this living room of the retreat space and we are doing this eye gazing with one another, knowing that my mentor and I had been in this mentor relationship for many years. There was this foundation of safety and trust that allowed me to open up to the practice, even though it was so hard and challenging to be in it, because he was reflecting back to me, I see you and I accept you exactly as you are. And I was hearing those words and I was having the hardest time to let those words in. And I could feel how tears were streaming down my face. I wanted to close my eyes. I didn't feel like I could keep them open. It was so hard to breathe because there was this trust between us. I could follow his guidance, and he kept saying, stay with the full breath, breathe slowly, deeply, fully. And he kept repeating those words, I see you and I accept you exactly as you are. Only when I was sitting a moment later, integrating the experience, I realized, why was that so hard for me to let those words in? Because the message was so beautiful. I have this light bulb moment. Oh my gosh, it is so hard for me to let in this unconditional love of his because it's so utterly unfamiliar to me. I have lived for so many decades, and this is actually the first time I feel so unconditionally loved. So there is this huge gap between how I feel in this moment and how I have felt for all my life. This moment of greatest pain and greatest joy coincides in one single moment. And it's so painful in that recognition, I never had this. And it's so joyful in this knowing now. And there was another thing that was utterly new to me and also came as a realization in that integration after the practice. There was this buzzing aliveness in every cell of my body, and it felt so extremely pleasant that I for sure wanted to hold on to it and to feel like that all the time because it was just so good. I am able to go back to that felt sense any moment I choose.
That's so great. So for anyone not familiar with the practice of eye gazing, basically what you do is in person, stand across from someone, you lock eyes and you don't let go. Normally, if we think about eye contact with someone, we'll make eye contact and then maybe look around a little bit and make eye contact and look around a little bit, but it's that sustained holding. What's really interesting is both of you are having your own experience.
Mhm.
For me, when I've done it, you can become very self-conscious. What is the other person thinking? And the point and purpose of it is to really, like you demonstrated, start getting aware of the thoughts and the things that we tell ourselves and the patterns and the truths. Well, I would say the lies that are present in our experience. And then the eye gazing helps us to be present with those untruths, maybe for you, not ever having the experience of unconditional love in the past. We may tell ourselves, if I haven't had that experience, it's not available to me. Well, that's not true. So eye gazing is something that can help people move through those untruths to really see you in your wholeness through the eyes of another person. And it's a really beautiful experience. I will not lie. It is a highly uncomfortable experience. Pretty much every time I've done it, I've cried because it's just so uncomfortable. But if you stick with it long enough, obviously, you can come out on the other side knowing deep truths about yourself that you wouldn't have known otherwise. In making this shift, up until that point in the past, one of your stories had been unconditional love is just not something I experience. And it shifts in that moment. Other than, like you said, you tap back into that moment, how have you continued to embrace that and trust that that can become your new norm? Because I also think that oftentimes we have these big, remarkable experiences. I had a few at a meditation retreat last year as well. Then we come back to our everyday life and we go back to all of the same things in the world around us, telling us all of the things that have reflected back to us about that untruth in the past. So how have you maintained this and really cemented this as your new reality?
I think it's really important to emphasize how my mentor really shook me out of this state of denial, because, like so many people, I was in this habit of just answering, I'm fine, when somebody would ask me, how are you today? I would just have that automatic response that I'm fine, while in truth, there was this huge amount of pain within. I think it's important to point out this denial that I had been in and that I could come out through this experience. It was almost like his holding me in this unconditional acceptance opened the door for me to accept myself as well. In particular, accept myself in my humanness, because unconsciously there were those parts of myself that I would suppress because I would deem them as unlovable. But those are the parts that make us human beings, and those are the parts that connect us as a humanity, because it's not individual feelings, it is universal feelings that are concerned here. You were also asking, how could you stay in this state of the retreat and not fall back to your old patterns? That has to do with me being motivated to behavioral changes. I would say one of the most important changes that were obvious right away is that I was so much in a pattern of not wanting to rock the boat, because I was so scared that if I stand up for myself and truly express what I want and need, the relationship might suffer. And it's more important to ensure that everybody else is happy, and I hold back with what is really true for myself. That changed because in that breakthrough retreat, I got the strong message that I need to have so-called courageous conversations. That's how I named them. It was very scary to have my first courageous conversation, but I committed to having it. And after I realized, oh my gosh, that fear that I had is really ungrounded, and it's the opposite that's true. It's leading to more bonding in the relationship. That's what motivated me to have many more of those conversations, because I had seen the proof of how those conversations lead to more connection with me and others, because everything is put onto the table with that raw vulnerability, with that raw honesty. And that is what brings people closer together and not further apart. The second thing that became really obvious in my behavior after the retreat was that I had this recognition that I was so afraid to make mistakes that I didn't even dare to be on the game board. I was watching life from the sidelines, so to speak, but I didn't dare to be on the board. I had realized I was robbing myself of the chance to win. I was so afraid to lose, and I chose not to play. But through that choice, I couldn't even win. So I need to be a player on the board. I need to be actively playing, and I need to play full out. That showed up in me signing up for a video mastery course. I had been scared to death to do something like that. I decided to feel the fear of that and to do it anyway. It was so scary to push that go live button with the first assignment, but I got through it. And again, because there was this atmosphere of safety with the classmates that allowed me to do it. The first time is always the most difficult time, and then it gets easier and easier. And in addition, there is this experience, it's not so bad and it's even fun to do it. And there's this motivation to do more of it because the first time was actually enjoyable.
Pardon the interruption as we take a brief break before bringing you back to our episode. Are you an entrepreneur who feels like you're running a marathon on a hamster wheel each day, but you'd really rather be swimming with the pigs in the Bahamas or having breakfast with the giraffes in Africa? You're getting okay results in your business, but you're ready for exceptional results. It's time to hit the reset button to give your business a makeover and evolve into your next level of entrepreneur. I want to invite you into the Reset, a 5-day business makeover to evolve your business from acceptable to exceptional. Visit breeseely.com/reset to get free access to this resource that will forever change the trajectory of your business. I want to touch back on one of the things you said in the first point, and that is how accommodating we can be to make other people comfortable. And in doing that, how little we're willing to accommodate ourselves to make ourselves comfortable. And that you had that shift where you're not purposefully making other people uncomfortable, but your priority becomes, I need to do what I need to do to make myself comfortable because no one else out there is accommodating to make me comfortable. So if I need something, it's up to me to fulfill that. And if the other people want to come along with me, great. Let's play. Let's go deep. Let's have those greater connections. And if they don't, cool. We show up as these altered versions of ourselves. We rob people of the ability to love us as we are because we are pretending to be something we're not, or we're spending so much time not rocking the boat, not realizing that the other people actually like riding the waves with us. Oh, I love that you went there. This is such a common experience for so many people that we play these mental games with ourselves and convince ourselves that it's better to just not even try than to go out there and try and even potentially fail. I think it's Sarah Blakely has said that her dad used to ask them at the dinner table, how did you fail today? The guy who runs Dollar Shave Club, he ran a business before that failed. And he's like, I wouldn't be here running this multi-million-dollar business if I hadn't failed before. Same for me. I ran a fashion business for 8 years. Had I not, quote unquote, failed at that business, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. What has been your biggest learning lesson about, quote unquote, failure or putting yourself on the board? What do you think has been the biggest thing that you've realized or shifted since making that decision?
When somebody is in this pattern of self-sabotage, there is this self-critical judgment right away. In regards to failure, there would be a voice saying, you are such a loser or something like that. But that all can be rephrased in whatever happens, I can take that as information. And information is very neutral. It doesn't have this judgy quality to it that is making somebody feel so much better to come from that place of neutrality and to say, look at what is true, and whatever information I get can serve me to go forward from there.
I'm a huge fan of data and really looking at experiences or outcomes or results as data. Say someone did a launch and they wanted 10 people in it and they only got 2. The data would say that maybe there was something off on the sales page, or maybe you were targeting the wrong audience, or maybe actual tangible things that are neutral, as you just said, to show you why you got the results you got. When we're in that pattern of self-sabotage, like you just illustrated, those are not the conversations we're having with ourselves. You're pathetic. People are going to think that you're a loser. People
Mhm.
are going to judge you because you wanted 10 people and you got two. It's such an interesting experience when you can shift from that place of self-sabotage into that place of maybe I just was targeting the wrong people. Maybe
Mhm.
my solution isn't the solution that I think my audience needs. When you approach it from that perspective, you get to go in with also more curiosity. Well, let me talk to my people and actually see why this wasn't a good fit for them. Was it the price point? Was it the messaging? Does it actually not address their problems? And those two conversations are such radically different conversations. One is a more solution oriented conversation that we get to have with ourselves. And one just keeps us trapped on that hamster wheel where we're spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning and going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper down into that cone of shame and guilt.
This spinning that you've just described, that is certainly happening when I am making my decisions from that mental place. With the mind, there is this immediate second guessing myself. What I have learned is really key here is to drop deeper in my body to my mind and my womb space and to make decisions from there based on that feeling navigation. They are so different than those mental decisions that lead to that immediate second guessing. It's a difference of night and day. With those deep womb heart decisions, somebody can feel really good.
I talk about our brains a lot as hard drives, just
Mhm.
like we have an operating system in our phone, an operating system in our computer. All of our hard drives were programmed, our brain, before the age of 8. And so when we're making decisions from our mind and our mind only, we're literally making decisions, one, based on our past, two, generally based on traumas we've experienced and trying to mitigate and prevent ourselves from re-experiencing those. Three, usually based on information that was programmed into us prior to the age of 8. When we get to connect with our heart, our soul, our womb, for me, that is tapping into something so much greater than all of us. That's truly where our wisdom lies versus in our head, it's knowledge. I
Yeah.
think that there's such a great difference between knowledge and wisdom. When we can make those decisions, like you're saying, from that place of wisdom, they're more aligned with who we are and the truth of who we are rather than the experiences that have happened to us. And it leads us down radically different pathways as well.
So true, those embodied decisions feel so much better. One point that I would really like to emphasize here is the question of what am I most grateful for when I look back at working with my mentors and what I have learned from them. I would say the thing that I am most grateful for is the shift from the so-called figuring out mode to the tracking mode. They would encourage me again and again to just go within and feel what's there. Just being in this tracking mode and noticing what message does my body have for me? What is it that my body wants to communicate and to really become a translator of that, because the body speaks in only one language, and that's the language of emotion. When I become able to feel those emotions viscerally, I can understand what the message is coming from this place where I have lived in my mind exclusively. I did not speak that language. I couldn't understand what my body wanted to communicate. And to have learned that, to have learned how to feel emotions on that somatic level, that has made such a difference for me. Not only was I able to feel emotions in myself, in working with other people, I started to also feel emotions in others and could help them navigate their lives with more ease and grace.
I want to pick out one word that you said in that is the most important word in that entire explanation you just gave. And that was language. That emotions are a language. A lot of us are so immune from feeling our emotions that someone comes to us and says, well, how do you feel? And you're like, intuition just isn't my thing.
First, there is this state of numbness.
For me, it's, okay, is intuition not your thing? Or is it simply a language you haven't yet learned? Yeah. I sent out an email in December to my list about my first night when I moved to Italy at the age of 20. I didn't know a single person. I got paired with 2 roommates, also both American. Had never even wanted to go to Italy before. Everyone's going to think this is ridiculous. I moved to Italy out of desperation. It was not on the plans ever. So I didn't prep. I didn't know the language. I didn't know anything about the city to where I was moving, Florence. I knew nothing. So I showed up in this city that not everyone speaks English. And I tried to ask for a spoon in Spanish, which is the language that I took in high school. And the guy just looked at me. It was not because I was incapable of learning Italian. It was a new language to me and that I hadn't put the time and the reps in yet to know how to speak it fluently. So for anyone listening, if you feel like that's you and you're like, felt sense, intuition, that's not for me. It can be for you if you so choose for it to be for you. And it's going to take as much effort for you to develop that language within yourself as it would if you were to move to a country where you didn't speak the language and had to learn that language. Intuition is something that is inherent within us, but we're so conditioned out of it that if you don't get it on the first try, it doesn't mean that you don't get it. It simply means that you need to practice more. It means that you need to study the language more, just like you would with a verbal language. Same thing.
Intuitive knowing is one of those right brain skills, and we live in a left brain dominant culture currently.
Oh, so good. Let me ask you one more question, then we'll wrap things up. If someone wanted to start learning this language, start tapping into their inner knowing, their heart, their soul, is there one small tip or trick or step that someone could take today to just at least get them moving on that pathway?
Yeah. I would repeat that same question that I have heard from my mentors. What is there feeling inside, and track what is happening for you? What are you noticing? As you were saying, there typically is this numbness that people notice at the beginning, and that is possibly so frustrating and leads to giving up. But it is rewarding when I stick with it at this point, because when I do it again and again, then that's accumulative. Eventually, I dig a little bit deeper every time I go. I inch forward until I come to a moment where there is not an inch in my movement, but that mile that leads to that big breakthrough. It's really just a matter of staying with it and be in this tracking mode again and again, and then eventually it will pay off. It's good to be in a group to do that, because then one can motivate one another and one can see in the teacher role modeling that it is possible. That keeps you going. And it's good to use breath as your best friend, because the breath is what allows you to feel safe in your body. And often it's so hard to be in your body when there's so much trauma in your body. But when you make your breath your best friend, it will lead to you feeling that internal safety eventually.
Quick example for our listeners. I started working with a Reiki healer. I think it was in 2008 or 2009. We were standing in this kitchen. It was before I had my first session with her. And she said, I want you to take a full deep breath into your body and then tell me where you feel it the most. I took a full, deep, full body breath and I felt it into my neck. And that was it. Where I'm at today is I can take a deep full body breath and I can feel it in my pinky toes. And that's between 2008, 2009 and 2024. Again, just illustrating this idea that the first time you practice this, you might not be able to feel into your pinky toes, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. It just means you get to show up and ask that same question that Katja just gave us again tomorrow, and again the next day, and again the day after that. And if you continue to do that, at some point, you will also be able to breathe into your pinky toe. It's such a radical shift, but it takes a lot of courage and dedication to keep showing up, especially if you get that numbness for the first weeks, months even. It's not an overnight process. Unfortunately, it's undoing decades of left brain conditioning, like you mentioned.
Emotions are your messengers. They communicate something to you. And it's so cool to know that this is the same with the breath. When I observe my breathing pattern, I also get so much information from it. For example, my exhale was easier and more pronounced. That is pointing to this pattern of overgiving that is so characteristic for the self-sabotage. Inhaling, on the other hand, this letting in, that was harder for me. We spoke about this breakthrough moment where it was so challenging to let all the goodness that really makes so much sense when you just observe those messages.
Thank you so much for being a guest today, Katja. Could you share with our listeners where to find you, where to connect more deeply with you?
I have prepared for people to get both a free gift and a VIP gift. The free gift is a simple PDF that allows people to feel safe in their body through using their breath, and it's called Feel Safe and Stable Now. And the VIP gift is a energy healing session with me, and I call it Joie de Vivre Energy Healing.
Awesome. If you all want access to Katja's 2 free gifts, if you go to breesealy.com/Katja, Katja, that will redirect you to her gift page and give you access to all of it. Super easy. My name, breesealy.com/Katja, Katja. Katja, thank you so much for being a guest today. This was lovely and such a resonant topic that is really important for entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship is so left-brained that helping especially female entrepreneurs get more into their bodies to make more aligned decisions is really going to support them in building and growing their businesses in a more effective way. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Entrepreneur Coach podcast. I hope you gained valuable wisdom from this episode and have at least one thing you can act on today. As I always say, listening to this episode will not change your life. What you do afterwards will. Please be sure to leave a rating and a review of the show, and don't forget to share this episode with a friend or colleague who could use it. Last but not least, please have the audacity to believe in the inevitability of your success today. You deserve it.